محمد وآل بيت محمد صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام ميم. حسب الناس أن يتركوا أن يقولوا آمنا وهم لا يفتنون. ولقد فتنا الذين من قبلهم فليعلمن الله الذين صدقوا وليعلمن الكاذبين. أم حسب الذين يعملون السيئات أن يسبقونا ساء ما يحكمون. من كان يرجو فإن أجل الله لآت وهو السميع العليم. ومن جاهد فإنما يجاهد لنفسه إن الله لغني عن العالمين. والذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات نكفر عنهم سيئاتهم ولنجزينهم أحسن الذي كانوا يعملون. ووصينا الإنسان بوالديه حسنا وإن جاهداك لتشرك بي ما ليس لك به علم فلا تطعهما إلي مرجعكم فأنبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. والذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات لندخلنهم في الصالحين. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
But if you have small children, these I ask them now, when the Majalis starts downstairs. But if they don't come on the member, we will inshallah start with the program. Then we will have, if the small children who have youth speech, they should be ready also. I'll ask brother Jamal for Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد.
برائے دیگر بلندتر صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
ایک اور آواز بلند نعرہ سلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
قبر اصغر کی بنانے میں بہت دیر لگی. قبر اصغر کی بنانے میں بہت دیر لگی. شہ کو ایک چاند چھپانے میں بہت دیر لگی. قبر اصغر کی بنانے میں بہت دیر لگی. کچھ قدم دور ہے بازار سے دربار مگر کچھ قدم دور ہے بازار سے دربار مگر پھر بھی شہزادی کو میں بہت دیر لگی. ہے قبر اصغر کی بنانے میں بہت دیر لگی. شہن ہر لاش کو جلدی سے اٹھایا لیکن شہن ہر لاش کو جلدی سے اٹھایا لیکن لاش اکبر کی اٹھانے میں بہت دیر لگی. ہے قبر اصغر کی بنانے میں بہت دیر لگی. ٹکڑے چنتے ہوئے قاسم کے یہ بولے ٹکڑے چنتے ہوئے قاسم کے یہ بولے ہائے افسوس کے آنے میں بہت دیر لگی ہے قبر اصغر کی بنانے میں بہت دیر لگی اس قدر پیاس سے سوکھا تھا گلوبے اس قدر پیاس سے سوکھا تھا گلوے سرور شمر کو تیز چلانے میں بہت دیر لگی قبر اصغر کی بنانے میں باپ کی لاش سے دوروں کی اذیتیں کئی باپ کی لاش سے دوروں کی اذیتیں کئی ایک بچی کو چھڑانے میں بہت دیر لگی ہے قبر اصغر کی بنانے میں بہت دیر لگی شہ کو ایک چاند چھپانے میں بہت دیر لگی قبر اصغر کی بنانے میں بہت دیر لگی. نعرہ سلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد عجل فرجهم.
نعرہ تکبیر.
اللہ اکبر.
نعرہ رسالت.
یا رسول اللہ.
نعرہ حیدری.
یا علی.
بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعجل فرج.
بانو کہاں تلاش کرے اپنے لال کو جنگل میں مار ڈالا ہے زہرا کی آل کو بانو کہاں تلاش زینب کے ساتھ روتی ہے سب مل کے بیویاں جب دیکھتی تھی روز وہ وقت سوال کو بانو کہاں تلاش شبیر دل کو تھام کے غش کھا کے گر پڑے دیکھا جو خون غرق نبی کے جمال کو بانو کہاں تلاش شبیر میرے پاس ہے صدقے کو بس یہی جھولے سے لا کے دے دیا بانو نے لال کو بانو کہاں تلاش شبیر لا رہے ہیں میدان سے دیکھیے اپنے ضعیف کاندھوں پر 18 سال کو بانو کہاں تلاش لیلا دعائیں کرتی رہیں بعد کربلا یا رب جدا نہ کرنا کسی ماں سے لال کو بانو کہاں تلاش شبیر اپنے روزے پہ بلوائیں گے ضرور توقیر تو نکال دے دل سے ملال کو بانو کہاں تلاش پر محمد و آل محمد صلی
اللہم صلی علی محمد
برائے خوشنودی امام زمانہ بلند تر صلوات
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد
بولی بانو ڈھونڈنے جاؤں تمہیں دل بر کہاں بولی بانو ڈھونڈنے جاؤں تمہیں دل بر کہاں روٹ کے ماں سے گئے ہو اے علی اصغر کہاں بولی بانو ڈھونڈنے لے گئے تھے شاہ تو پانی پلانے کے لیے کس اندھیرے بن میں سو پائے تمہیں سرور کہاں بولی بانو ڈھونڈنے جاؤں تمہیں دل پر کہاں ہے اندھیری رات اور سنسان جنگل میرے لال اب کہاں ہوش ماں کی اور اب وہ گھر کہاں خالی دیکھ کر صغرا یہ پوچھے گی ضرور رہ گیا اماں وہ میرا میں جبھی اصغر کہاں رات کی تنہائی میں جب یاد آئے گی تیری ڈھونڈے گی پہلو میں تجھ کو پائے گی مادر کہاں بولی بانو ڈھونڈنے آ کے پھر ایک بار صورت دکھلاؤ جاؤ چاند سی پھر خدا جانے کہ لے جائے ہمیں لشکر کہاں روتے روتے میں تمہاری یاد میں مر جاؤں گی ماں کو چین آئے گا اپنے لال سے چھٹ کر کہاں دے دیا بانوں نے ہر ماں کو مجاہد ایک سبب ورنہ ہم بیٹے اور ماں کا دل مضطر کہاں بولی بانوں ڈھونڈنے جاؤں تمہیں دل بھر کہاں روٹ کے ماں سے گئے ہو اے علی اصغر کہاں بولی بانوں ڈھونڈنے
اللهم صل على محمد وآل
The youth, if Sister Jenna is here, then we can do her speech. Otherwise, we will start with the program, inshallah. By Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Inshallah, tomorrow's program will start at 11 o'clock with Ziyarat-e-Naiya from 11 to 12, and then there are all the amal which Brother Kareem, Qasim, and Maulana will lead, mashallah, so you can come. And I have found that, even if you park down there in the school, you can still walk, it's like a 2-minute walk, it's still possible, because I'm expecting a lot of Mu'min coming tomorrow, so it might get overcrowded here, so still we can park there and walk up here. That's it, and I'll ask Maulana to come to the member with loud salawat.
اللهم صل على
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل
بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل
رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة مع الصلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد و آل محمد.
Many in our community and around the US, around the world, mean Minat who are in need of our du'as, specifically Sister Anis Dar, as well as others. So let's recite Amni Wajib 5 times for inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Amma yujibu mustarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-sur. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Also, if the mu'mineen and mu'minat can move up now, so that we don't have to do that in the middle of the majlis again. Move up to the front, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين شفيع المذنبين رحمة للعالمين سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل
ثم الصلاة والسلام التحية والإكرام على أهل البيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرض روحي وأرواح العالمين للتراب مقدمه الفدا ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد. For the love of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and all the shuhada of Karbala, send Allah salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Mu'mineen, Mu'minat, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, Salamun alaykum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Continuing our discussion on how to become a successful mu'min. We reached an ayat which talked about zakah. And we said that one of the meanings according to the Mufassirin is zakat means self-purification. So we started going through some ideas and some tips about how to purify oneself. We said the discussion mainly revolves around controlling yourself, controlling your desires. We said, we gave some answers. Some people wonder, why is it that we even have free will in the first place? Yeah, this is a question on a lot of our minds. We said, basically, things are known by their opposites, right? Sometimes things are known through their opposites. In order for us to recognize perfection, to see what truth is, we have to see batil. We have to see imperfection. And the only way to do that is if we have free will here, so that we can be subject and view that. Without that, then there is no meaning to the term Islam or Muslim or submission. Submission only happens when you have a choice. Okay. So we answered that. Then we started this discussion about, okay, what are some ways we can fight against our ego, fight against our desires? What are some tips about that? We went through one of the short sayings in Nahj al-Balagha from Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. This is saying number 289. For those who are interested, you can look at it in the English. So we went through a few points. I'll just quickly go through them again. So we said first he knew of somebody previously, right? He's just mentioning some akhun fillah, some brother in faith that he knew, but he doesn't mention him by name. So he was, in his eyes, Imam saying, in my eyes, he was a great individual. Why? Firstly, because the dunya, the material world for him was something insignificant. He didn't pay attention to it, right? It was nothing to him. Second, he didn't let his stomach become a sultan over him. Didn't let his stomach rule over him. He said, this is basically saying that we have to watch what we eat, not overeating. Right? Next, he said that if this person didn't get something, right? Let's say he was going after something, whether it was an item, a job, whatever, he couldn't get it, he wasn't able to get it, then he didn't go crazy, he didn't obsess over it. If he didn't get it, then fine, no big deal. But if he did get something in his life, then he wouldn't ask for anything more. Right? So we gave the example yesterday. There's a lot of stuff we want in our lives, material stuff, right? Looking for new jobs, bigger houses, another car, we want new phones, a bigger TV, all these things. Especially, our kids ask us for all this stuff. And especially for our kids, although again, as a reminder always, they're watching how we act. The more materialistic we act, the more materialistic they'll become as well. So if they see us constantly going after things and buying things and spending on them, we spoil them, then of course they're going to act more spoiled in return, right? So if you didn't get something, if we don't get anything, don't obsess over it. And when we do get something, don't ask for it anymore, right? You get the iPhone 7, great, don't ask for the plus, right? It's enough. Then the last point was that most of the time, this individual, our advice to us is that we should be silent. We should be quiet, silent most of the time. There's a lot of us who like to speak, saying that silence is better. If you're not sure whether something is important, whether I should definitely say it or not, or like we tied it to yesterday, said social media, right? Should I share this picture? Should I share this article? Should I post a status update? Is it absolutely necessary? Is it really beneficial? Again, go back to the discussion we had about useless things. Do I 100% absolutely have to do this? If your answer is no, or you're not sure, then don't bother, right? It's not going to kill you if you don't post it up or if you don't say it. Okay, so that's that. A few other points were left, and actually this is probably one of the most important parts of what Imam's saying. And as I said, this is a very long, not a khutbah, it's a hadith from the Imam. There's a lot of interesting points, but I'm going to skip around because of lack of time. But I would encourage everybody who's interested to read it for yourselves. So we skip a few points and we come to this one line he has. And then he says, again, regarding this brother and faith that he knew, that he's describing to us as somebody he believes is a successful individual. وَكَانَ إِذَا بَدَهُ أَمْرًا. Whenever he had to come and he was faced with two different decisions to make, two different choices in his life. How did he go? How did he decide? يَنْظُرُ أَيُّهُمَا أَقْرُبُ إِلَى الْهَوَىٰ. First he figured out, okay, which one do I like more? Which one do I want more? Which one do I desire more? Which one suits my nafs better? Okay. Then what happened? فَيُخَالِفُ. So whatever one, he had two choices, right? This one, I like better, so he did the opposite. He did the other one. That was how this person lived his life. So this is probably one of the strongest points for us to pick on. We can expand on it a little bit. If you can send a salawat ala Muhammad. As we had said, the heart of the battle of fighting against yourself, of self-purification, is fighting against your nafs. When we say nafs, we say ego, right? That sense of I, me, man, ana, that ananiya. Like I want this, I want that, this is mine, this is mine. Now we're used to kids doing this all the time, right? Kids, when they reach a certain age, especially if they have siblings, they start taking possession of as many things as possible, right? This is how in spirituality they discuss this, is that this is when the nafs starts developing, right? They have a certain toy, they don't touch it. But when somebody else looks at it and they grab it, no, this is mine, you can't play, right? Adults, sometimes we have that same idea as well. Yes, in the physical world it happens. Sometimes even we bring it, unfortunately, into Islam, as an example. And again, I don't want to upset anybody by this, but I have to give examples which sometimes are very contemporary and I say mubtala bih. It's something that sometimes we're victimized and plagued by. Okay, this X night of Muharram has to be so-and-so fulan shahadat. And you have to recite his masa'ib and that's it. Okay. Why? Because that's the way that my culture has done it. In X city where I grew up in, that's the way we did it. So it has to be the same way over here. But what if somebody else from another culture is here? Right? For them, we did somebody else on that night. Somebody else's shahadat, somebody else's musibah we recited on that night. So in my city, we did that. So now what are you going to do? Are you going to fight over something like love of Hussein and Azadari? It's ridiculous to go down to such a level. Imam Hussein alayhi salam's message is mercy, justice, liberty. Destroy yourself. Look for the higher level causes. Think what's better for us in the long term. If we're going to fight over things like alams and whose night is whose and which tabarruk to give and things like that, it shows that we really haven't understood and digested the message of Imam. This is something to consider in all aspects of life, especially when we're discussing things about the Ahlul Bayt. The Ahlul Bayt are not our property. The Ahlul Bayt, it's not mine, it's not yours. It doesn't belong to anyone. Technically, if you really want to describe who has possession of Ahlul Bayt, it's only Allah, because only Allah truly understands who the Ahlul Bayt are. That's the only one. So when we start attaching ourselves and becoming possessive of Ahlul Bayt, we're just like that child, like that's my car, that's my toy, that's my phone, it's my this, my that. No, it's not your Imam Ali, it's not your Imam Hussein, it's not your Azadari. This is something that's been sent down from Allah through the Anbiya, through the A'imma alayhimus salam, and we have the pleasure of using it. Right? And we share this with individuals, right? Same thing we want to tell our kids, share your toys, right? There's no harm, it's okay. Same way we should have the same message and understanding when it comes to Ahlul Bayt. Sallu ala Muhammad wa Okay, now back to this point of fighting against your nafs or desires, right? So how can we start doing this? I'll give you one story which is interesting. It might seem extreme to you, but I think it gets the point across. So Imam Khomeini, rahmatullah alayhi, he was known to be a very humble individual, very high level of irfan, an expert in many different sciences. So at one point they say that somebody narrates I believe it's one of his students or another alim visits him, and the Imam Khomeini sitting there eating, I believe it was watermelon, right? So this person joins, they sit down, and now they're used to ta'aruf, right? They're used to, okay, Imam should be, have some watermelon, but the Imam is just eating it on his own, he's not offering it to this other guy. So this other alim is like, this is weird, but he waits, he's like, okay, maybe he'll offer it, but he doesn't. Okay, this is really strange. So finally, curiosity gets the best of him, and he's like, Imam, I don't know you. You're usually a person who shares. You gift to everybody else. You think of others before yourself. I've been sitting here for a little while, and you haven't even offered me any watermelon. What's the problem here? He's like, oh, sorry about that. Go ahead, have some. So this guy takes a bite of the watermelon and spits it out right away. What's wrong with this watermelon? He's like, it's salty. He's like, yeah. We didn't say yeah. He said something else in Farsi, right? Whatever. I'm paraphrasing for you. He's like, yeah. He's like, my nafs loves watermelon a lot. So what I've done to fight it is I started adding salt to the watermelon so that my nafs gets trained so that it starts liking it less and less and less. This is the way he would train his nafs. Right? We have all these things in our life too. Now I'm not saying that, all right, let's go out and get some ice cream and then all of a sudden add salt to that. I'm not saying do the exact same thing. Although if you want to, alhamdulillah, more power to you. What I'm saying is that there's this mubariza, there's this muharaba with the nafs that has to happen all the time. There's things that we like and that we love and we want them. That's okay. If it's halal, if it's mubah, you're allowed to have it, then fine. But just understand, the way that we train our nafs, you have to understand it like a little child as well. The more you spoil your nafs and your ego, the more it's going to ask from you over and over and over again. This is why our kind of egotistical behavior, when it comes to physical normal things like money, car, and our possessions and all this is why it can spill over into Ahlul Bayt in the first place. If we kept it away from things like food and drinks and cars and money and all that other stuff, then of course we'd never come into Islam in the first place. So we have to watch the way that we do that. Now, it's going to be very tough to do that if we're already used to being very dunyawi and worldly and materialistic people. I'm going to share another story. So this is something that Rumi is mentioned in his Mathnawi. It's a story about perfume sellers. So whenever he's writing this story, obviously they had a bazaar. So I'm going to try to update this story a little bit, right? So imagine there's a shopping mall, right? This shopping mall, this section of it is where all the cologne, perfume, and all that stuff's being sold. So when you walk by this aisle, right, this section of the shopping mall, there's obviously going to be a certain smell coming from there, right? So those who are in the perfume and cologne industry, they're used to those kind of smells, right? So for them, because they have that special kind of sense of smell, they can tell every different little thing, right? So those of us who know ithr very well, for example, you can smell like, okay, this one has too much water, or this one is too oily, or all these different little characteristics. So obviously, if you're a perfume, a cologne salesperson, you know all these little differences and all these little different distinctions. So one time, somebody, okay, now I can't really make this a modern day thing, because all right, somebody takes a horse and brings it through this bazaar, right? I don't know how we can, all right, let's say somebody takes their dog to the shopping mall, right? So they pass through this area where all the perfume and cologne is being sold. So the dog's walking through, obviously we know how dogs smell, right? It's not the nicest smell. So they pass through this, and now the smell of the dog, the stench is left over. It smells bad for business. So now all the perfume and cologne guys are arguing with each other, like, we have to get rid of the smell, it's gonna hurt our business, we have to get rid of this. But of course, they're all too lazy to do it themselves, right? They're like, we don't want to get close to this. So they're like, okay, let's get some like animal control person to come and take care of this stuff, right? So, okay, fine. So they call somebody from animal control, and somebody who's used to like cleaning up dogs' messes and animal messes, whatever. So when that person gets close to that area in the shopping mall, they pass out. That person passes out. I'm like, what the heck happened to him? They wake him up and like, what happened to you? He's like, I don't know, there's such a weird smell coming from this place. I can't go in there. It's really weird. What bothered him was the smell of the perfume and the cologne. That's what he couldn't handle. Why is that? Because he was used to dog smell, horse smell, all these things. Okay, now let's make the connection. What's the point? We're trying to fight our nuts. We're trying to purify ourselves. Simple things. We're trying to pray on time. We're trying to watch what we say. We're trying to watch what we eat. We're trying to watch how we behave with our friends, our family, our coworkers, the way we talk to our spouses, the way we talk to our children. We're trying to work on this constantly, hopefully. The problem is that when we're used to disgusting behavior, that good behavior that we need to do seems gross to us, right? If we were already used to doing things which were better, if we were already like those perfume and cologne salespeople, then good smells, right, like colognes and other fragrances, would be fine for us, and we'd love to smell that and put it on, and apply that to ourselves. But when you're stuck to animalistic tendencies, when you're materialistic, that's all you're going to want. So that's why, let's go back to the discussion of music. A lot of individuals, if they've listened to haram music for a long time, what happens when sometimes you try to play noha for them, or you try to play Quran for them, or a dua, or nasheed, something like that? Like, this stuff sounds weird, turn it off, let's put on some music. I've heard a lot of people say something like that. Why? It's because they're used to disgusting sounding things, right? Spiritually disgusting, right? To them, they might like the beats and the sound, whatever. But because their soul has been used to something which is not good for it, that's what they're going to have to eat constantly. We can use the same analogy for food. Obviously, things with too much salt and MSG, right, monosodium glutamate, it might taste nice to us right now, right? But if somebody trains themselves, after a while, when they get rid of this extra salt and sodium and MSG in their diet, when they actually have like proper fruits and vegetables, it actually tastes good to them. But if a person, like a child or even adults, if they're just going to be having like sugar-filled drinks and all these like cheap snacks and things like that, or fast food, then of course vegetables and greens and fruit and food which is healthy and organic, it's not going to taste good to them anymore. But once a person abstains and keeps away from that stuff from a while, then they get rid of that usual that habit that they had to things which were bad. They build themselves up, and then things which actually taste good will taste good to them. After a while, when you start going back to places like Taco Bell or McDonald's, you're like, this is disgusting. It doesn't taste like food anymore. Why? Because you've purged yourself, you've cleansed yourself, you detox. What a lot of us need is that same thing. We need to start going through a spiritual detox. So how are we going to do that? We'll find out, inshallah. If you can send salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Back to exactly how the Imam was describing this individual. When you're in front of a choice, figure out which one does your nafs like. What does your ego like more? What do you want more? And when you have another choice, pick that one. Don't pick what you like. Don't pick what you love. If, for example, right now, well, let's not say right now because most of us maybe don't want to do that. Okay, some random night, you're about to pick what you want to eat for lunch. Okay, I have a choice of, I have leftovers in the fridge, maybe some leftover tabarruk, for example. Or, what, I feel like getting pizza or Chinese, or I feel like ordering out tonight. So now, two choices, either leftovers or ordering food. Now, which one do you want more? Which one does your nuts want more? Which one does your stomach want more? What does your ego want? I want to buy food. I want new food. I want to order out. So you say, okay, I'm going to pick the opposite. I'm going to go with the leftover food, right? Doing this little by little. Again, I know it sounds like a simple thing. You guys have been in this situation before. You know how tough it is to go against what you want. But the minute you build up that willpower and little actions start going against what you want, then slowly, when the bigger things, the bigger decisions come, then you'll already have built up your spirituality. So you'll go with things which will smell better, which will taste better, which will be better for your soul. And that's what we're going after. So there's another hadith. I didn't get a chance to see from which ma'asum it was from. But basically it says, a mu'min in a masjid is like fish in water. It's like normal for them. It's fine for them. When they come, it's like, yeah, this is where I belong. But for a munafiq, the masjid for them is like a prison, right? Like a zindan. Why? Because they don't like the feeling here. They don't like brotherhood. They don't like sisterhood. That's why you see sometimes, unfortunately, when individuals come to the Husayniyah, the Imam Barga, the masjid, their akhlaq, that bad akhlaq they have previously, they bring into here. Right? So for example, obviously it's a good trait when somebody comes, especially if we don't know them. I mean, people we know, we usually send salam to, we ask them how they're doing. When individuals enter the center, we don't know who they are, right? Isn't it incumbent and shouldn't it be wajib and lazim on us to go and say salam and introduce ourselves to see who they are? You see right away, some individuals, they're like, who is this person? What are they doing in my center? They don't belong here. You start judging right away. Unfortunately, it happens with a certain gender more so than it does the other gender, right? And I'm not saying this is not my thing. I hear from sisters in every center that I go to. They come, they complain to me, and they complain to the other speakers and scholars that come. They say, when we come there, we're treated like we're like dogs. Like we're like new people. We come to the center, like we just moved, or we don't come here usually. We come in, and then people just like stare at us like, who the heck is this? What is she wearing? What's wrong with her? Like that's the looks that they get. Hopefully the men don't do that here. Hopefully the sisters don't do that here. If you do, don't do that. It's not the proper behavior of a Shia. We're welcoming to every single individual. especially because Bibi Fatima alayhi salam is here welcoming everybody else. And I know every single individual here wants to follow the sunnah of Bibi Fatima alayhi salam. If she's here, tidying up the shoes, welcoming everybody as they come in, taking care of everything as it is, making dua for all of us, then her sunnah is that we follow that same thing, we follow that same sunnah. We tidy up the place, we make sure the shoes are put properly, we make sure that we ourselves don't just toss our shoes around, we put our shoes properly. We take our garbage, we put it in a garbage can. And it's something very obvious. This is a place where mu'mineen, the angels come, everybody's here. We treat this place like it's our own place, right? Okay. So hopefully now, from this moment on, again, hopefully I hope it's not an issue in this center, but if it is, hopefully we have more recognition and understanding. Fight with your nafs. If somebody comes in and your nafs is like, just sit here, you're sitting comfortably, there's no reason for you to say salam to this individual. Now you know, you have two choices. Either do what's easiest for you, or fight against your nafs. What's easier for you is to sit down, not talk to anybody, not say salam, and to be a jerk, basically, right? To be rude. But the tougher thing to do is rise above your nafs, rise above your ego, and be a better individual. Welcome people, because you have no idea what that person's gone through today. They might need somebody just to come and say salam and ask them how they're doing, right? We all know this. We have our issues at home, we have issues at work, we have issues at school, and sometimes, we just need somebody to, smile to us and say salam, how's everything going? And okay, then sometimes we're forced to put a smile and say, no, alhamdulillah, everything's okay. Why? Because we just wanted somebody just to recognize us, that's it. A lot of us, we're looking for that same attention, right? Sallu ala Muhammad wa So we're running out of space in the back again. Inshallah, if the mu'mineen, mu'minat can move forward again and allow for space in the back. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Especially after all that mu'mineen, mu'minat, brotherhood, sisterhood stuff, you better start sitting next to each other at this point, right? Okay. But just like I said the other night too, if you want people to say salam to you and ask you how you're doing, you better at least take a shower before you come, or at least put on all that, spray, ether, cologne, perfume, you better do something before you come in. Right? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. One more point before we move on to the next ayat of Surah Al-Mu'minun. Okay. Now you might be thinking in your mind, you want to say to me, Hassan, listen, you mentioned all this great stuff, the Imam's talking about all these wonderful things. We agree, it's good akhlaq, we want to do that. But it's a bit too much. Fighting against your nafs is really difficult. The ego is really strong. I agree, the ego is very strong. To go against what I want, what I desire, is almost impossible. How am I supposed to do all these things? How am I supposed to not be a person who is in love with the dunya? How am I supposed to be a person who fights against overeating and eating what I like and want? How am I supposed to be a person that doesn't ask for more? How do I get all these qualities? This is really difficult. So sometimes we become not used, we become hopeless, I can't do all this stuff. This kind of stuff is meant for Ma'asumin, or you talk about Imam Khomeini, those guys can do that. Those great people, they can do that. But me, just let me stick to matam and namaz and praying and doing tabarruk. That's the most I can get to. So Imam, don't worry, he's got you covered. He's got a line for you here too. This is right at the end. So what does he say? فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِهَذِهِ خَلَائِقْ. Basically saying, listen, this stuff is wajib on you, right? To put it in other words. He's like, عَلَيْكُمْ بِهَذِهِ خَلَائِقْ. These traits, this akhlaq is wajib on you. Okay, he's speaking to all of us right now. Okay. فَأَلْزُمُوهَا وَتَنَافَسُوا فِيهَا. Then he takes it a step further. He says, so you need to go after each and every one of these traits. But not just that, you need to start competing with one another. Normally, competition and kind of getting into, not battles, but, competing with one another, normally is not good. In Islam, we say, no, if it's a good trait, then you should be better than other individuals. Right? There's nothing wrong with that, right? Okay, if somebody, donates $100, again, okay, Allah says to, فَاسْتَبِقُوا بِالْخَيْرَاتِ, we should compete with one another and try to do better in what's khair. Okay, fine. It's not like I have jealousy or not. I'm not trying to show off. I'm just trying to please Allah. I'm trying to follow the advice of the Imam. So okay, he gives 100, I'll give 200. Oh, they give 200, I'll give 1,000. They give 1,000, I'll give 10,000. Whatever it is. Whatever you can, you try to do better than other individuals. Okay, this person, whenever they come in, they say salam to everybody that walks in. Fine. I'm going to say salam and I'm going to ask how they're doing. You see somebody. Okay, they say salam and ask how they're doing. I'm going to say salam. I'm going to ask how they're doing. I don't know what's better than that. Do you need anything, right? So that's what somebody said? Okay, good. You go higher and higher, you know, whatever, you guys can make it up, right? This is obvious too, I think. How's your family doing? Okay, right? Do you need anything? Et cetera, et cetera. Does the center need more donations, right? Now, okay, now maybe you're like, okay, Imam said it's wajib, but still it seems difficult. Okay, I got another line for you, don't worry. Imam says, فَإِن لَمْ تَسْتَطِعُوهَا فَاعْلَمُوا. So listen, if you really think you cannot do it, I mean, I'm not to steal from Nike, but he's like, just do it. فَاعْلَمُوا. Just do it. You have to try. Then, أَنَّ أَخْذُ الْقَلِيلِ خَيْرٌ مِنْ تَرْكِ الْكَثِيرِ. This is the line we have to focus on. Something's better than nothing. Or to put it literally here, he's saying, at least try one of these things, right? Just try whatever little bit you can do, just do that. Because it's better that you at least get one of these traits, whatever it happens to be, what we mentioned. Better you get one of these things than none of these things. Don't just give up completely. Maybe in the next 20, 30, 40 years you live, maybe the only thing you're able to improve upon is that you say salam to one other individual that walks in. That's fine. Because Allah is the only one who knows how much you can improve. And let's just say, with husnul dhan, the benefit of the doubt, you've tried your best and that's how you've improved. And I'm saying, okay, do that. Do the very little bit that you can do, that's fine. Inshallah, every step that you take forward, Allah will give you more tawfiq. And this is something that's clear to any of us who have tried to put in that effort. The more you put in, Allah says, okay, you put in one step, what does He say? 10 steps. You come 1 arm length, I come 10 arm length. You give $1, I'll give you $10. You give 1,000, I give 10,000. This is the way that Allah does it. He multiplies by at least 10. If not, sometimes more. Sallu ala Muhammad. So this will end our discussion on zakat and tazkiyah and purifying the self. Again, as to wrap it up, fight against what's really going on inside of you, right? Go beyond what your ego, what your heart, what you think your heart wants, that kind of materialistic stuff you want in life. Look at what else your options are and choose the other one. Fight against what you really, really want in life. Okay. So now our next discussion, the next ayah. So we went through a few different points. We first talked about a successful mu'min or what? First characteristic is that they're humble in their salah, right? Second was what? Anybody remembers? What do they do when they come about things which are a waste of time? They keep away from those, right? And they try to make their life full of things which are productive. The third thing we talked about was this, was zakat. Either that they give sadaqah, as we said, was one meaning, right? Giving charity and things like that. They give it away, they purify their property by giving away. Or this idea of self-purification, either way. Now the next trait, the fourth trait. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والذين هم لفروجهم حافظون. So the next two ayats, I'm going to skip these. If anybody's interested, I would just suggest, hopefully you've done it already. If not, read through Surah Mu'minun yourself. It's short, it's not that long. Or if you just want to look at the points which we're talking about in this series, from the first, from the beginning, up until about verse 10, maybe 11 or 12, right? Up until they talk about Jannah. So read that for yourself and you can see. So let me translate literally for us. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِفُرُوجِهِمْ حَافِظُونَ. So what's another trait, fourth trait for the successful mu'min? Those who are protective of their furuj, their private parts, their private areas. Okay, so what does this mean? So literally what this is talking about are things like adultery, zina, fornication, things like this. In both the literal sense, meaning literally cheating on somebody's spouse, or getting into relationships outside of marriage, right? Either before or during marriage. Okay, so I'm being asked again that we're running out of room, so if the mu'mineen mu'minat again can move up as far as possible, as close as possible. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
بارے دیگر بلند تر صلوات.
So, this is the typical tafsir and meaning of this part of the verse, meaning that you protect your private areas, meaning you don't do things which are unlawful in Islam, right? Again, this is a big discussion. However, we're not going to discuss this specific one. Well, why not? One is because this topic about how to dealing with kind of marital issues is something I feel is better left for either a marriage seminar or if we had a whole series dedicated to having a successful marriage in Islam, or if you were to have kind of private counseling sessions, all of which are available. And there's ulama who have been trained specifically in these things. So for those who are interested, Sheikh Osama Abdul Ghani, may Allah protect him. He's in the US now. I believe he's based in Dearborn, Michigan. So he's gone around to different communities and he's offered these private counseling sessions and seminars on how to have a successful marriage. And for those who are younger, what to look for when you're about to get married. You know, what to look for as traits in a spouse. So I'd advise this community, I think it's good to have that sheikh come and offer that seminar. You can probably do it in a weekend. It's very, very beneficial. So those types of things, because it's a big discussion. What are the causes for people to, for example, why are they cheating in communities? Why are they having these kind of unlawful haram marriages? You know, why are kids dating? All this kind of stuff. It's got its time and its place. It's a useful discussion, but right now, I don't think I want to discuss that. Instead, I want to kind of take a bird's eye view and make a more general discussion and take it higher. Meaning what? I want to talk about the general issues regarding the concept of hijab, of like the Islamic code of modesty, because it's something which is on everybody's mind. It's a very controversial issue sometimes, and I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions regarding that in our communities, in the Ahl Sunnah communities, and of course, because of the way Islam is under attack right now, because of the propaganda, a lot of us are being questioned about hijab. And we need to have some sense of an ability to answer, as we've been saying the past few nights, right? So we'll make a few points about hijab tonight. Not everything, obviously, you know, it's a big topic as well, but just some of the few points which sometimes gets raised at school or at work. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Okay, first question that comes up in our minds. Okay, is hijab wajib or not? Right? A lot of people now, they're writing books and they're writing articles, or the question comes out, like, you know, is hijab even wajib? Like, where did this stuff even come from? So one point we need to know is that this question about the wujub, the obligation of hijab, has never been a question. Obviously, right now we're talking about women specifically. When it comes to men, women, all those issues, we'll mention that inshallah later if we have time. Right now we're specifically talking about women. This has never been an issue until very recently. Only very recently, certain quote-unquote Muslim academics or quote-unquote scholars or other non-Islamic, non-Muslim scholars have raised this issue. Before this, now, there's differences of opinion that exist in Islam. We know this, right? Even among our Shia scholars, as you mentioned in the early nights, right? Sometimes between our marajib, they have difference of opinion, and that's okay, it's healthy. Some of our marajib, like Ayatollah Sistani, says chess is haram, you can't play. Other marajib, like Ayatollah Khamenei and Ayatollah Nassim Karim Shirazi, for example, say no, chess is allowed, it's okay, as long as you're not betting. And may Allah protect all of them, right? They have a specific ijtihad, they follow certain rules, and they come to conclusions, and that's okay. We don't need to make a fight about that. There's no reason to fight about that. So sometimes we have differences among Shia scholars. Okay. But sometimes all Shia agree on something, like for the example, the concept of temporary marriage. It's agreed upon thing. But then we have a difference with Ahlul Sunnah. The Ahlul Sunnah, for the most part, don't agree with that, right? So then we have an ikhtilaf between Sunni and Shia. Okay, fine, we can have that discussion. Other times, there's a complete 100% agreement between all Shia scholars and all Sunni scholars, right? Sometimes this happens. And these usually happens in things which are called the badihiyat, the obvious things of religion. One thing is alcohol. We obviously know that alcohol, pork, are haram, right? I haven't seen yet any scholar, a credible scholar, to come out and say, you know what, one sip is okay. It doesn't work like that. Or one person to say, you know what, one little bacon cheeseburger, it's not going to kill you. Nobody's come out and said that. Oh, namaz, salat is not wajib. Nobody has what they say, the jur'at. They have the gumption, the bravery to come out and say something like that, because it goes against and stands in stark contrast to 1,400 years of scholarship. It doesn't make sense. Hijab is another instance of this. 1,400 years of scholarship in the same thing. Hijab is wajib, it's this, X, Y, Z, that's it. But very recently, some people have come out and they've questioned it. Now, again, we're not saying that these are bad individuals or they're dumb individuals. We don't want to judge them, but we want to say we want to be academic, we want to be rational, we want to be mature about it. Let's be civil, let's be adult. Let's look at some of the arguments they present and let's see if they're actually good arguments or not. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Okay, argument number one, some of them bring. The word hijab doesn't even come in the Quran. Okay, hijab doesn't come in the Quran, that's a big problem, right? Maybe. Okay. So what's one answer? One time his answer is, listen, have you read the Quran? Hijab comes 8 times in there. How can you say that the word hijab doesn't come in the Quran? 8 times the word occurs. I have the references. It doesn't make sense for me to mention them all because it doesn't make sense. If anybody wants references, I can share them. But a simple Google search will show you that, yes, the word hijab, 7 times the actual literal word hijab comes, and one time one of the derivatives, I believe mahjubun comes. Okay, whatever. So the word is there. So that argument is gone right away. And then they might come back and respond, no, that's not what we meant. Well, I know that's not what you meant because it's wrong. What did you mean? We meant that this idea of putting on, having a woman put on a certain scarf or cover up like this, that type of hijab is not mentioned in the Quran. Okay, so let's see. First of all, even if this idea, this concept of the wujub and obligation of hijab wasn't mentioned in the Quran, that doesn't mean anything. Why? Because the Quran is not a book of law. Other religions might have specific books of law, and they might call their book like the Talmud, for example, for the Jews. The Talmud is a book of law, for example. The Quran is not like that. The Quran is kitab for hidayah, hudan linnas, right? It's meant to guide us. It's general guidance. It's not there to say, okay, rule number 1, rule number 2. That's for Tawbi al-Masail and things like that, right? The Risal al-Amuzis and things like that. So this argument that, it's not in the Quran, so it's not wajib, that's not a strong argument, right? And usually the ones who bring this argument are the ones who call themselves like the Quraniyun, or the ones who say that we only have the Quran. And those arguments, they've been tired, they're long tired, and it's not worth going into that. We know that there's a hadith, right? The Prophet comes and he explains what the verses are. And we as followers of Ahlul Bayt, we follow the Ahlul Bayt. And they explain what the Prophet explained. Or if the Prophet didn't explain, or if he didn't get a chance to, or if there's confusion, we go to the Ahlul Bayt and they explain everything for us. And likewise with the Ahlul Sunnah. They don't say the Quran only. They say Quran plus we follow the Sunnah. And the Sunnah they get from the companions, the Sahaba. Okay. So all of us agree that, listen, when you come to those narrations, those also explain this idea of hijab. So this Quran only thing, we have to kind of keep away from that. Right? This, for example, if we want to talk about how to pray is not in the Quran. Right? There's a lot of things not there. There's nowhere in the Quran that says that I can't jump off a member and punch somebody in the face. I haven't seen that ayat yet, but it doesn't mean that it's allowed for me to do that, right? So we can't be so simplistic the way we think about the Quran. Okay. So now they go forward and say, all right, well, that's not what we meant. What we meant is that the way hijab is used and mentioned was very specific. Like how specific? They said, okay, hijab comes as a part of Surah Ahzab, chapter 33, verse 53. Okay? Over there, it mentions hijab. So let me mention the ayat for you. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. It starts with Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, and then it starts mentioning different characteristics that are specific to the wives of the Prophet. Right? It says, for example, لا تدخلوا بيوتهم, something like this, and a bunch of different characteristics. I don't have the whole ayat, and it's not our concern what the other things are. I'm just going to fast forward to where we need to go. At one point, it says, وَإِذَا سَأَلْتُمُوهُنَّ مَتَاعًا. So whenever they ask your wives about anything, فَسَأَلُوهُنَّ, ask them مِنْ وَرَاءِ حِجَابٍ. Ask them from behind hijab. Okay, so what does hijab mean over here? These people who are saying, no, hijab doesn't mean the head covering, they say, listen, hijab literally means curtain. It doesn't mean put something on your head. And what does this mean? They say, listen, this was specific for the wives of the Prophet. Whenever anybody wanted to talk to either the Prophet or the wives, they had to do so. The Prophet's wives had to go behind a curtain. So don't take things out of context. This doesn't say that all women need to go behind a curtain, number one. And it definitely doesn't say that all Muslim women need to put something on their head. So that's their answer. So what's our response? We say, yeah, we agree actually. Right? You're right. Hijab in this sense does mean curtain. It actually has other meanings as well. In this verse it means curtain. And we agree that this verse specifically was for the Prophet's wives, meaning that no other woman has to stand behind a curtain like this, right? If they want to, they can. That's their choice, obviously. But no other woman has to do that. There's specific rules for the Prophet's wives. This was one. Other rules, for example, were after the Prophet passed away, then they weren't allowed to get married to anybody else. And there's reasons for this, right? Because people, if they were able to marry the wives of the Prophet afterwards, you know what they would have done, right? They would have used it for political means. And we already saw how, unfortunately, some of the wives, they got misguided and they made some terrible political and religious decisions. We saw what happened in history, right? So, okay, that's one thing. So then what do we respond? What are we going to say? We say, listen, we don't use this verse to prove hijab in the first place. This is not the verse that we use. And a second response, hijab is a modernized word. When you and I say the word hijab, when people hear hijab, they think of the scarf that women wear. Right? And then again, some people might say, no, it means Islamic modesty. Okay, fine. Whatever you want to say, even if it's the simple meaning of covering, a woman covering her hair, that's not the Islamic definition, actually. That's not the Islamic word that was ever used. Those of us who are familiar with Arabic, and those of us who are familiar with Islamic books, especially Arabic books, especially the fiqh books, their jurisprudential books, There's no kitabul hijab. There's nothing like that. There's no section on how one puts on a hijab. What they talk about is satr. Satrul nisa, or satrul awrad, or satrul awra. Satr means covering, right? For example, one of the names of Allah is Ya Satarul, or you, right? Cover of our defects. Satr is the way that it's explained. So somehow, Shahid Mutahari rahmatullah alayhi mentions this in his book, that we don't know what happened throughout history, right? It was mentioned as satr. Somehow, in some point, people started saying hijab, and now that's what we say. It doesn't really matter why, but for somebody to go look for the word hijab in books is incorrect. An example would be if somebody were to say, listen, Bibi Sakina alayha salam didn't exist. She didn't exist. How can you say that? Because I looked in the books of Tariq, in the history books, and her name's not there. Her name's not going to be there because her name in Arabic is Ruqayya, obviously. You're looking for the wrong name, you're looking for the wrong word. And does it matter which name we use? No. Because according to some ulama, Imam Hussein alayhi salam called her Sakina once, it was a nickname she used. Okay, so it doesn't matter which name you want to use. Sakina, Sukaina, Ruqayya, whatever. We're talking about a certain individual, the daughter of Imam Hussein, who was present at Karbala. That's it. We don't, again, let's not get into kind of egotistical battles about which name you want to use. We're talking about a certain character that we respect and we love, and that we cry over her musibah. That's it. So it doesn't matter which name. The point was this, is if we go looking for what we're after, we might not find it in the books. If we go looking for the word hijab, it's not going to be there. So then where are we going to find this concept? Sallu ala Muhammad wa We'll stop here and we'll move on to Masail. So I'll give you the ayat so you can look at it for yourself, and then we'll explain it Thursday in our last majlis, inshallah. So in Surah Nur, chapter 24, verses 30 through 31. You can take a look for yourselves, and then we'll explain this in the beginning of the lecture Thursday, inshallah. After we go through that, then we'll explain the ayat. Then we'll mention this idea of male versus female hijab, right? This is a big question on our minds. For example, why don't men have to cover up? That's a big question people have. We'll go through that, and then if we have time as well, we'll start going through some psychological and medical evidence which exists, which actually talk about the benefits of wearing and observing hijab. And also one scientific and psychological article, an article in psychology, which shows why is it that men don't have to cover up and women have to cover up. And this we'll discuss inshallah Thursday. As you know as well, Thursday will be our last lecture, quote unquote. Tomorrow is Ashura. So technically, tonight is the night of Ashura, tomorrow is the day. Now, it's been my habit and practice that on Ashura, I don't continue my lecture. I don't continue the subject that we have at hand. This is just my kind of personal understanding. I prefer to do nothing but the musibah for Ashura, and then at night, meaning the night of the 11th, for Sham al-Ghariba, as we refer to it, I recite the musibah then. I don't like to continue the speech. I'm not saying that if somebody comes and recites it, it's haram and they're bad. It's just me, I don't feel comfortable doing that. So I apologize if somebody was expecting that the lecture would continue. We won't do that. Therefore, the last night that we'll have together, inshallah, will be Thursday. So obviously you can tell that there's a lot of ayat we're not going to be able to go through. So we'll start the discussion, or rather we'll end the discussion on hijab. If we have time, we'll try to quickly mention the other characteristics of a successful mu'min, and then we'll try to wrap up and give a summary and conclusion for our discussion that we had together. If there's any other leftover points, as I've mentioned before, let me know, and we'll try to also address that for Thursday, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad. It's tough for any individual to come, whether they recite poetry, whether they recite musibah, whatever they're doing, maddah, to recite the musibah for any of the shuhada. When you're reciting it, this kind of feeling, comes over you. And I know for poets especially, as you're reciting that, you hear individuals cry. Your heart feels it yourself as well. And in order that the poetry or the musibah doesn't kind of lose its structure, a person has to kind of withhold their tears sometimes. They have to hold back a bit, right? Because their duty, their job is for people who are listening, right? The mukhatabeen. And usually, sometimes it happens that even when we hear this kind of dhulm that happened to the shuhada, what happened to the imam and his family, yes, it's dhulm definitely. What happened was something that's tough for us to comprehend. But, to some degree, it's aqli, right? Okay, they went out, they fought in a battle, and they were killed in battle. They became shaheed. Okay, I can understand that. But what aql, what intellect, what person, what individual who has a heart can understand this musibah? Who can understand how a 6-month-old child is slaughtered? This is not a person who went out for battle. This is not a person who is, anybody can even an iota, even a semblance of an argument that this was political or this was a fight. You can't bring any excuses like this. This was the most innocent individual at Karbala, a 6-month-old baby. Yet, in history and according to a lot of our ulama, Ali al-Asqar alayhi salam is the greatest mujahid of Karbala. They say, so young he was barely even crawling. According to some, he wasn't crawling then. You know, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, on the day of Ashura, he comes back to the tents. He's looking around and he sees Abbas is gone, Ali al-Akbar is gone, Aan is gone, Muhammad is gone, Qasim is gone, all of his ashab have gone. He's looking back and forth. He comes back out, he looks out, and he says his famous lines, Hal min nasirin yansurna. Is there anybody out there to help me? Imam is now all alone by himself. Hal min nasirin yansurna. Hal min mughithin yughithuna. Is there anybody to help us? Is there anyone to rescue us? Is there anybody left? Now, mu'mineen, when this is recited, when this is read in a book, it's tough to understand because we don't understand the Ahlul Bayt. But you mu'mineen, mu'minat understand the sha'n of Ahlul Bayt. I know this. When Imam said these famous lines, they say from the tents, there was loud cries and screams from the women. Imam Hussein came to them and said, what's going on? Why is everybody crying? I'm still alive. I'm still here. I haven't gone yet. Why are you weeping? Why are you crying? He said, Mawla Hussein, do you know when you said, Hal min nasirin yansurana? When you said, Hal min mughithin yughithuna, your son Ali al-Asqar threw himself from outside his cradle in response to you. Ali al-Asqar is calling you. He's responding to your call, Ya Mawla. Imagine a 6-month-old with this much ma'rifat that he's coming to the aid of his Imam. Imam says, give me my child. He picks up Ali al-Asqar. He says, maybe these individuals have some humanity in them. Maybe I can go get some water for him. Maybe they'll quench the thirst of my child. Rabab comes to Hussein and says, wait, before you go, let me beautify my child a little bit. Let me dress him up a little bit. Maybe they'll have some mercy. Maybe they'll show compassion on my son, Ali al-Asqar. Rabab takes Ali al-Asqar. She wraps him in new clothing. She puts kohl and kajal on his eyes to show the beauty of him. She gives him back to Hussein and says, Hussein, please take him out and get my child some water. Get our child some water and bring him back to me. Mu'mineen, mu'minat, do you know there's 2 mothers who waited outside the khaymah, outside the tents on Ashura? One of these mothers was Farwa, waiting for her Qasim, and the other one was Rabab, waiting for Asqar. But do you know the difference? When Farwa was waiting for Qasim, she knew that my son was going out to become Shaheed. She knew deep down that my son is not coming back. But when Rabab was outside waiting, she actually expected that Hussein come back with Ali al-Asqar. No mother in their minds, in their lives would expect that a 6-month-old child comes back and is slaughtered by an army. Imam Hussein takes his abba, his cloak, and he wraps Ali al-Asqar there. He begins coming towards the army. The army looks and says, maybe Hussein is bringing the Quran with him. Maybe he wants to do a sulh. Maybe he wants to do a treaty. Maybe he's done fighting. Hussein comes. He says, Ya qawm, qataltum akhi wa awladi wa ashabi. People, you killed my Abbas, my brother Abbas. You killed my son. You killed my children. You killed my companions, everyone. There's nobody left except this baby with me. I have no one left except this child. What gunah, what ma'asiyah has this child done? Please just give him a little bit of water. He hasn't done anything wrong to you. When Hussein asked this, no one from the army responded. Umar ibn Sa'd then said, no, this is a trick of Hussein. He's going to take the water from himself. Hussein said, no, if this is what you think, I'll put Ali al-Asqar, my child, on the sands of Karbala between us and I'll step back. You go and give him water and I'll keep away and I won't touch the water. Hussein goes forward. He puts Asqar down on the sands of Karbala. He moves back and he waits. And no one comes forward. No one says anything. Hussein comes forward. He picks up Asqar. He says, Ya Ahlu Yazid, O people of Yazid, aren't any of you a father? Isn't there somebody among you who has a child with them? Don't you know what it's like to be a father? Don't you know my child is dying of thirst here? Can't you sympathize with me? Mu'mineen, mu'minat, do you know what Hussein said to Sakina before? before he had left, what he said to Sakina before he went out to battle, the message that he gave to us as his Shia, what did he say? What do we have to hear from Imam? He said this message, oh my Shia, Ya Shi'atana, if only you had been with me on Ashura, you had have seen your Hussein begging for water for his child, but nobody was there giving it to me. Now Hussein has no choice. He picks up Asghar, he brings him back. He's talking to his son. Ya Asghar, do you know you are Hujjatullah fil ard as well? I'm a Hujjah, you're a Hujjah. You have to do a Hujjah, Itmam a Hujjah on these people as well. Show them how thirsty you are. This 6-month-old child who's part of Bani Hashim, who's the son of Hussein, grandchild of Ali ibn Abi Talib, he comes out, he turns his face towards the Lashkar, the army of Yazid. He opens his mouth and he begins licking his lip to show how dry his The army sees this and they can't take it. They turn away and they start crying. They say, Yabna Sa'ad, we can't handle this. You have to do something. We can't see this child crying like this. It's breaking our hearts. Umar ibn Sa'ad now calls Hurmala, the Mal'un. He says, Hurmala, iqta kalam al-Hussein. End this speech of Hussein because this is going to be a revolution and an inqalab in our army if Hussein is allowed to continue. We have to stop this. Mu'mineen, mu'minat, do you know this dhulm of Hurmala? Do you know how tough and strong this dhulm was? Understand this dhulm of Hurmala before we end. You know, Mukhtar afterwards, when he would catch these dhalimeen one by one, those who were the mal'oon, those who were involved in Karbala, those who were involved in this qital, he would take them one by one, and when he had killed them, the news had come to Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam. So news would come one by one. They say, Ya Sajjad, Yabna Rasulullah, do you know that today Shimr has been caught? And he'd say, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. Yabna Rasulullah, do you know Umar ibn Sa'ad has been caught? He's like, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Shukran Lillah. But every time somebody mentioned something, whether it was after Shimr's name, whether it was after Umar ibn Sa'ad, Imam Sajjad would say the exact same thing. He says, but what happened to Hurmala? What happened to Hurmala? Has he been caught yet? Has somebody taken Hurmala or not? Hurmala now takes his arrows, he goes on top of this high level, this elevation, on top of a plane. Mu'min, mu'minat, do you know how many different types of arrows that the lashkar, that the Arabs used to use back then? There would be very simple arrows, steel arrows, there would be wooden arrows, things dedicated to different types of animals when they would go hunting. Whenever they wanted to slaughter the neck of a camel, they needed a specific 3-pronged arrow. Why? Because the neck of a camel was tougher than the necks of other animals. Hurmala, Mal'un, decides that this 3-pronged arrow that he has that's meant for a camel, he's going to send this into the neck of this 6-month-old child. Ajrukum ala Allah. Hurmala takes his arrow, he puts it on his bow, he pulls back, his hand begins to shake and he drops the arrow. He picks it up again, he pulls back, and again he drops it. And this happens a few times. Umar ibn Sa'ad looks at him and says, Hurmala, what's wrong with you? You're one of my best soldiers. You're the best archer among the Arabs. Why is it that you can't shoot? He says, let me tell you something. Come here. Look where I'm looking. Look where I'm standing. You see, every time I pull my bow back, I pull this arrow back, I can see Hussein, I can see this child, and back there near the tents, I see a woman standing there. Every time I pull the bow back, this woman takes a step forward and I drop my arrow because my heart is telling me that this is probably the mother of this child. Every time I pull the arrow back, the mother steps forward and I drop my arrow. Umar ibn Sa'ad tells him, he says, ignore this, turn away from this woman and look straight at Asghar, look at your target and shoot your arrow. Hurmala looks at the neck of Asghar, he pulls his neck, he pulls the arrow back, he turns away from the bow. He lets the arrow go, the arrow comes flying in the air, it shoots through the air and lands through the neck and pierces the neck of Asghar. And one narration says it even pierces the other side through his ear and through the wrist of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. When this happened, this is a 6-month-old child feeling a 3-pronged arrow meant for a camel through his neck. They say that Asghar took his hands outside of the abba, outside of his clothes, and he tried to grab hold of Hussein. And when he did this, the pain was so unbearable, he began to flap his hands like a fish, like a bird back and forth. Gharib Hussein is watching this 6-month-old child flapping his arms back and forth with blood pouring everywhere. I have no idea, mu'minat, how Hussein pulls this arrow outside. When he does,
He sees the blood on his hands, and Hussein is wondering, what do I do with the blood of my child? He looks in the sky and wants to throw it into the sky. The sky calls back down to him, Hussein, if this blood comes to us, we'll never shed down rain again. Hussein looks to the earth, to the Zameen, to the Arab. He wants to throw the blood down there. The Arab calls to him and says, Ya Hussein, Ya Ibn Rasulullah, if you throw this innocent blood down on this earth, then no seed will ever grow again. Hussein looks at himself. He sees there's only one place left. He wipes this blood on his face, on his beard. This is how Hussein will come to Rasulullah on the day of Jannah. Hussein covers his baby again with his abba. He starts going back towards the tents, the khayma. As he gets closer and closer, he starts mentioning those famous lines. He walks toward Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un riban bi qada'ihi wa tasliman li amri. As if we come from Allah, we will return back to Allah. But I'm pleased, I'm happy with whatever Allah decides, and I submit to His commands, whatever Allah wants. And as he starts to go forward, he stops. He says, Nabab is expecting me to bring back a child. How do I bring back that slaughtered child to her mother? What can I do? 7 times he walks backwards again. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Ridan bi qada'ihi wa tasliman li amri. Finally, after 7 times back and forth, Hussein makes it to the tents. But before he reaches, he says, Zainab, grab Rabab. Zainab, hold Rabab. Sakina comes running out. Says, Baba, did you get Ali al-Asr? Did you get my brother some water? Hussein says nothing to Sakina. He can't say a word to her. And he turns away from her. Hussein removes his abba and he shows what has happened. He shows the body of Asr to everybody. When Rabab saw the body of Asr, she says only one thing. She says, Bunayya, Bunayya, amithluka yunah. My child, Bunayya, are children like you slaughtered like camels? Is this what it's come to? They say Rabab had passed out when she had fainted. She woke up a little while later. Hussein said, Rabab, we have to get some closure now. Come with me as mother and father. Let's go bury our child behind the tents. Let's go say our wida. Let's go say our wida. They go behind the tents. Hussein gives the child to Rabab. Rabab is holding the baby. Hussein takes out the fiqah and begins digging a hole, a small hole designed for a 6-month hole behind the tent. Has anybody ever seen this scene before where a father is digging a hole with a sword for his 6-month-old child and a mother is holding the body? Mu'min, have you ever seen anything like this? What is Hussein going to do? What is the final line of Hussein? Hussein turns now towards the river Furat. He looks for his brother Abbas. He says, Akhi Abbas, Akhi Abbas. Do you know, Akhi Abbas, what happened when Ibrahim, the son of Rasulullah, died? Do you know what happened, Abbas? When Ibrahim died, Ali, our father came and said, Rasulullah, you cannot handle this. A father should never bury his child. Let me bury that child. Abbas, look now, Hussein is burying his own child with a ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون رضا بقضائه وتسليما لأمره. Ya Allah, by the right of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, we ask you to forgive all mu'mineen, mu'minat, all Muslimin, Muslimat. Ya Allah, we ask you by the right of Ali al-Asghar, our greatest shaheed, our greatest mujahid, to give us the tawfiq to raise our children to have that same love of ma'rifat that Ali al-Asghar had. We ask you to make sure that no child, whether Muslim or non-Muslim, ever has to suffer this kind of thirst in the world. Ya Allah, we ask you to give us the tawfiq to make sure we can provide this kind of water and tabarruk for all mu'mineen, mu'minat, and those who are suffering under these kind of conditions, under those different types of government which are doing dhulm to all individuals. We ask you, Allah, to hasten the reappearance of the Imam of the time and make us his helpers, supporters, and companions when he returns. Wa akhiru da'wan and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein, 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 Ali Asgharam, 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 Ali Asgharam.
علی اصغرام آئے 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 علی اصغرام تجھے جھولا جھلاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھلاؤں 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 میں خواب میں اصغر تجھے میں خواب میں اصغر تجھے لوری بھی سناؤں تجھے جھولا جھلاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھلاؤں تجھے جھولا جھلاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھلاؤں لوٹا سفر سے کہ بڑی دیر ہوئی ہے لوٹا سفر سے کہ بڑی دیر ہوئی ہے بےتاب ہوں کب سے تجھے بےتاب ہوں کب سے تجھے سینے کو لگاؤں تجھے جھولا جھلاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھلاؤں تجھے جھولا جھلاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھلاؤں میں خواب میں اصغر تجھے میں خواب میں اصغر تجھے لوری بھی سناؤں تجھے جھولا جھلاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھلاؤں تجھے جھولا جھلاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھلاؤں کوئی مجھے بتلاتا نہیں تیری نشانی کوئی تجھے بتلاتا نہیں تیری نشانی ہر ساتھ میں تیروں کی ہر ساتھ میں تیروں کی کہاں ڈھونڈنے جاؤں تجھے جھولا جھلاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھلاؤں تجھے جھولا جھلاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھلاؤں میں خواب میں اصغر تجھے میں خواب میں اصغر تجھے لوری بھی سناؤں تجھے جھولا جھلاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھلاؤں تجھے جھولا جھلاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھلاؤں سوچا تھا تیری سال گرا گئی میں کروں گی سوچا تھا تیری سال گرا گئی میں کروں گی تقدیر یہ کہتی ہے تقدیر یہ کہتی ہے جھولاؤں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں میں خواب میں اکثر تجھے میں خواب میں اکثر تجھے لوری بھی سناؤں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں بابا سے تیرے تیرا جنازہ نہ اٹھے گا بابا سے تیرے تیرا جنازہ نہ اٹھے گا رک جا ذرا پاس کو رک جا ذرا پاس کو دریا سے بلاؤں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں میں خواب میں اکثر تجھے میں خواب میں اکثر تجھے لوری بھی سناؤں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں یہ کوس بڑا کرتا یہ مٹی میں بھرے بال یہ کوس بڑا کرتا یہ مٹی میں بھرے بال سینے میں چھپاؤں سینے میں چھپاؤں کہ میں آنکھوں سے لگاؤں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں میں خواب میں اکثر تجھے میں خواب میں اکثر تجھے لوری بھی سناؤں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں اس طرح کو ٹوٹ کے مارتے نہیں جاتا اس طرح کوئی دل مارتے نہیں جاتا تو خود ہی بتا دے میں تو خود ہی بتا دے میں تجھے کیسے مناؤں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں میں خواب میں اکثر تجھے میں خواب میں اکثر تجھے لوری بھی سناؤں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں میں تجھے جھولا جھولاؤں آئے علی اسلام 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 آئے علی اسلام
پیشخوانی نوها گریه کن عزیز من بر حسین و یارانش 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 گریه دیگر بهر گریه یتیمانش گریه دیگر بهره گریه یتیمانش گریه کن عزیز من گریه کن عزیز من گریه کن که گریان است چشم حضرت زهرا های گریه کن که گریان است چشم حضرت زهرا من بمیرم از بهر مادر پریشانش گریه کن بر حسین یارانش گریه کن عزیز من بر حسین یارانش گریه کن که بنهادم سربازان یش زینب های گریه کن که بنهادم سربازان یش زینب اشک دیدگان او می چکد به دامانش گریه کن عزیز من گریه کن عزیز من گریه دیگر بهره گریه یتیمانش گریه دیگر بهره گریه یتیمانش گریه کن عزیز من گریه کن عزیز من گریه کن که زینب را صبر از کفن بیرون های گریه کن که زینب را صبر از کفن بیرون به کفن به میدان است پیکر عزیزانش گری خندد دشمن عزاداری های گریه کن که میخندد دشمن عزاداری شور و گریه و ماتم آتش است بر جانم گریه کن عزیز من بر حسین یارانش گریه کن عزیز من بر حسین یارانش اشک دیدگان من یا حسین میگوید های اشک دیدگان من یا حسین میگوید درد او متاع دل جان شود و قربانش گریه کن عزیز من بر حسین یارانش گریه کن عزیز من بر حسین یارانش گریه دیگر بهره گریه یتیمانش گریه دیگر بهره گریه یتیمانش گریه کن عزیز من بر حسین یارانش گریه کن عزیز من بر حسین یارانش گریه کن که زینب را صبر از کفن بیرون های گریه کن که زینب را صبر از کفن بیرون به کفن به میدان است پیکر عزیزانش گریه کن عزیز من بر حسین یارانش گریه کن عزیز من بر حسین یارانش گریه کن عزیز من بر حسین یارانش محمد و آل بیت محمد صلوات
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. حسین یا حسین یا حسین دین محمد کی بقا یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین تیرا آخری سجدہ حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین دین محمد کی بقا یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین
اور علمدار نایا دریا سے دل حیدر کرار نایا آیا ہے اور علمدار نہ آیا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا حسین آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا وہ پانی کے لیے بہتا علمدار کو سہنے رہی کوئی شا وفادار نہ آیا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا اوکے تیر لگا مشق پہ اور بہہ گیا پانی ایک تیر لگا مشق پہ اور بہہ گیا پانی لے پانی کو یار مددگار نہ آیا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا بازو جو کٹے دانتوں میں مشکی کا دبایا بازو جو کٹے دانتوں میں مشکی کا دبایا گھوڑے سے گرا زینت پہ اسوار نہ آیا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا زینب نے کہا دیکھ رہی ہوں میں نتیجہ زینب نے کہا دیکھ رہی ہوں میں نتیجہ شمس علی قافلہ سار نہ آیا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا غیرت کا تقاضا ہے علمدار کی ہستی غیرت کا تقاضا ہے علمدار کی ہستی شرح سال وفادار نہ آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا ہر ایک یہ پوچھی تھی ہے روکے سکینہ ہر ایک سے یہ پوچھتی ہے روکے سکینہ او کیوں یہ سے باز علمدار نہ آیا
او ظالم نے میرے گالوں پہ مارے ہیں تماشے او ظالم نے میرے گالوں پہ مارے ہیں تماشے او ظالم نے میرے گالوں پہ مارے ہیں تماشے میرا غمدار نہ آیا اور علمدار نہ آیا اور علمدار نہ آیا صلوات و سلام آپ فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ فاطمہ زہرا ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ فاطمہ زہرا ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ فاطمہ زہرا ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا کیا قاسم بے گس کے لاش کو کمال کیا قاسم بے گس کے لاش کو گمراہ کو بے بیوا کیا یا فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ فاطمہ زہرا ہم آئے بچے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا کمال کیا قاسم بے گس کے لاش کو کمال کیا قاسم بے گس کے لاش کو گمراہ کو بے بیوا کیا یا فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ فاطمہ زہرا ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا ہم دیتے ہیں پرسا تمہیں عباس جری کا ہم دیتے ہیں پرسا تمہیں عباس جری کا اور اکبر دلیر گیا فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ فاطمہ زہرا ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا بہار کیا قاسم بے گس کے لاش کو بہار کیا قاسم بے گس کے لاش کو گمراہ کو بے بیوا کیا یا فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ فاطمہ زہرا ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا بیڑی بنائے جوڑی بدن زخمی کر دیا بیڑی بنائے جوڑی بدن زخمی کر دیا سجاد پہ یہ ظلم کیا فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ فاطمہ زہرا ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا بیڑی بنائے جوڑی بدن زخمی کر دیا بیڑی بنائے جوڑی بدن زخمی کر دیا سجاد پہ یہ ظلم کیا فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ فاطمہ زہرا ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا کانوں سے سکینہ کے اتارے گئے گوہر اس کانوں سے سکینہ کے اتارے گئے گوہر کانوں سے سکینہ کے اتارے گئے گوہر زینب کی بھی چینی ہے رضا فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ فاطمہ زہرا ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ فاطمہ زہرا ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا بیڑی بنائے جوڑی بدن زخمی کر دیا بیڑی بنائے جوڑی بدن زخمی کر دیا سجاد پہ یہ ظلم کیا فاطمہ زہرا بیڑی بنائے جوڑی بدن زخمی کر دیا بیڑی بنائے جوڑی بدن زخمی کر دیا سجاد پہ یہ ظلم کیا فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ فاطمہ زہرا ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا یا حسین 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 یا حسین
stories about suffering of Bibi Zainab. A friend of mine sent this from Kabul with some attachment and commitment back. I hope by reciting this, do some justice. I hope. میان همه دل ها امان از دل زینب امان از دل زینب میان همه دل ها امان از دل زینب امان از دل زینب میان همه دل ها امان از دل زینب امان از دل زینب غم دست بریده غم دست بریده غم فرق شکسته غم خد خمیده غم خد خمیده غم دست بریده شده قاتل زینب شده قاتل زینب نه همه دلها امان از دل زینب امان از دل زینب میانه همه دلها امان از دل زینب امان از دل زینب غم موی پریشان غم موی پریشان غم پیکر اوریان غم ناله و زاری غم ناله و زاری غم ناقه سواری شده قاتل زینب شده قاتل زینب میانه همه دلها امان از دل زینب امان از دل زینب میانه همه دلها امان از دل زینب امان از دل زینب غم تنه و دشتم غم تنه و دشتم غم اشکل بیبام میانه غم بیبان غم منت ناله غم منت ناله غم طفل ساله شده قاتل زینب شده قاتل زینب میانه همه دلها امان از دل زینب امان از دل زینب میانه همه دلها امان از دل زینب امان از دل زینب غم کوچه و سیدی غم کوچه و سیدی غم صورت نیلی غم قد کمالی غم قد کمالی غم یاس خزایی شده قاتل زینب شده قاتل زینب میانه همه دلها امان از دل زینب امان از دل زینب غم غربت حاکی غم غربت حاکی غم چادر خاکی غم غسل شبانه غم غسل شبانه غم بازو و شانه شده قاتل زینب شده قاتل زینب میانه همه دلها امان از دل زینب امان از دل زینب میانه همه دلها امان از دل زینب امان از دل زینب غم حیدر خسته غم حیدر خسته غم فرق شکسته غم سینه گلگون غم سینه گلگون غم دشت ترسکون شده قاتل زینب شده قاتل زینب میانه همه دلها امان از دل زینب امان از دل زینب میانه همه دلها امان از دل زینب امان از دل زینب غم شبه پیامبر غم شبه پیامبر موی خونی اکبر غم محسن دیگر غم محسن دیگر غم غربت اسکر شده قاتل زینب شده قاتل زینب میانه همه دلها امان از دل زینب امان از دل زینب میانه همه دلها امان از دل زینب امان از دل زینب
Hussein! 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 Hussein!
वीर का सेवा नाना बनाया वीर का सेवा नाना बनाया
वीर दसया लेना बनाया है वीर दसया
तेनू सिर ते सजावेगा तेनू सिर ते सजावेगा धन वीरन मेरा लेना ना बनाया है वीर दसया लेना ना बनाया है वीर दसया सबके लेना ने बनाया है
वीर दसया लेना बनाया है वीर दसया
तेनू सिर ते सजावेगा तेनू सिर ते सजावेगा धन वीरन मेरा
लेना बनाया है वीर दसया लेना बनाया है वीर दसया लेना बनाया है वीर दसया
वेख बनाया है अकबर का मैं गाना तू बराए लई है कहाँ सिमराए आना लैला नु जावेवी लैला नु जावेवी एहसास है तेरा
लेना बनाया है वीर दसया लेना बनाया है वीर दसया
तेनू सिर पे सजावेगा तेनू सिर पे सजावेगा धन वीरन मेरा
लेला बनाया है वीर दसया लेला बनाया है वीर दसया
ते मुज़म्मिल दे तेरे दियां लड़ियां शादी ते मैं भी जाऊं मैनू बुता वाले बड़ियां हम शेरा नु भी आते हम शेरा नु भी आते हुंदा मान बतेरा
लेना बनाया है वीर दसया लेना बनाया है वीर दसया
ते मुज़म्मिल दे शहरे दियां लड़ियां शादी ते मैं भी जाऊं मैनू तांगा ते खड़ियां हम शेरा नु भी आते हम शेरा नु भी आते दमान बतेरा
लेना बनाया है वीर दसया लेना बनाया है वीर दसया
एनू सिर पे सजावेगा एनू सिर पे सजावेगा धन वीरन मेरा लेना बनाया है
वीर दसया
लेला
बनाया है वीर दसया
बेटियां तेरे राह विच दुखां दर्दां दी मारी निछड़े मर न जावे कदे बहन प्यारी अकबर नु मेरा जाके अकबर नु मेरा जाके ओ दे सुनेगा लेना बनाया है वीर दसया लेना बनाया है वीर दसया लेना बनाया
तुम्हारा दूसरा शेर
ताते मुज़म्मिल दे तेरे दियां लड़ियां शादी ते मैं भी जाऊं मैनू तांगा ते बड़ियां हम शमशीरानु भी आते शमशीरानु भी आते दमान बतेरा नाना बनाए शबे आशूर है फुसुरदा सबाती है 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 शाह मज़लूम के मातम की सदा आती है शाह मज़लूम के मातम की सदा आती है शबे आशूर है फुसुरदा सबाती है शबे आशूर है फुसुरदा सबाती है वलियों को मुसलमानों ने पानी ना दिया वलियों को मुसलमानों ने पानी ना दिया तो अगर चाहे तो जन्नत से गिसाती है तो अगर चाहे तो जन्नत से गिसाती है शबे आशूर है फुसुरदा सबाती है शबे आशूर है फुसुरदा सबाती है कत्ल शबीर हुए खातुराओ लोगों कत्ल शबीर हुए खातुराओ लोगों गम में डूबी पूरी खैमों से जिंदा आती है गम में डूबी पूरी खैमों से जिंदा आती है शबे आशूर है फुसुरदा सबाती है
است قرارتی من را به باطل او می‌بریدم من می‌بریدم او می‌بریدم من می‌بریدم او از حسین سر من غیر از او دل او از حسین سر من غیر از او دل او از حسین سر من غیر از او دل من غیر از او دل یا حسین یا حسین یا
بسم الله شیرین لقا بسم الله روح البقا بسم الله شیرین لقا بسم الله شمس الضحی بسم الله عین الیقین حسین 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 بسم الله روح البقا حسین حسین بسم الله روح البقا حسین حسین بسم الله روح البقا بسم الله شیرین لقا بسم الله شمس الضحی بسم الله عین الیقین Increase, 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 علی مگر دعا کند بی تو دعا نمیشود مسیح اگر شفای ها مسیح اگر شفای ها شفا نمیشود یتا تو یتا یتماز حسینم پرچمی یتا تو یتا یتماز حسینم پرچمی یا حسین یا حسین بادم سنر گردان حسین صاحب و مرد دیدم صفا و مرد دیدم گرد حرم دویدم صفا و مرد دیدم گرد حرم دویدم هیچ کجا برای من درد و بلا نمی شود هیچ کجا برای من درد و بلا نمی شود یا حسین یا حسین یا سید الاحرار حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا سید الاحرار حسین اگر عباس و ویلا حسین عباس و ویلا 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 اگر عباس و ویلا
محمد و آل محمد صلوات.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا نبي الله، السلام عليك يا حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين علي حجة الله، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام عليك علي بن الحسين زين العابدين، السلام عليك محمد بن علي الباقر المنبيين، السلام عليك جعفر بن محمد الصادق، السلام عليك موسى بن جعفر القادر، السلام عليك علي بن موسى رضا، السلام عليك محمد بن علي الجواد، السلام عليك علي بن محمد الحادي، السلام عليك حسن بن علي الزكي العسكري، السلام عليك يا صاحب يسر الزمان الامان 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 من فتنة الزمان، السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك يا مظهر الإيمان، السلام عليك إمام الزمان، هذا أجل الله فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وزهور. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Inshallah, tomorrow Majalis Ashura will start at 10:30 am. Please, 10:30 am. 11 o'clock we will do the Arate Naya and the Amal will finish by 1 o'clock. Then we will do the Namaz and then Maktab will be decided after the Ashura. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Husseiniya Zindabad, Husseiniya Zindabad, Husseiniya Zindabad, Yazidiya Zindabad, Yazidiya Zindabad, Yazidiya Zindabad, Nare